Hi and welcome to Simply Ballers 2024-2025 season previews. It's that time of the year where for the next 30 days I'll be releasing a season preview for each team. In each preview there will be a quick season and off-season recap. Then following that we'll be looking at what's in store for each team. We'll be looking at some of the key questions that they have, some of the positives, some of the negatives. It will be digging deeper in some of those areas. And at the end there are some final thoughts with prediction of the standings, their floor, their ceiling, some of the playoff chances, and some other fun predictions. So today we're going through the Orlando Magic, and they made the playoffs for the first time since 2020. And although it doesn't feel like long ago, it feels worse than it was. They only had 3 seasons of no playoff appearance and only had 2 seasons with sub 30 wins. But it feels longer than that. It feels like they were worse than that. And they finally hit on a good core. They're finally on the right track. They keep getting better, and they made the playoffs. They almost made a second round, and it's only going up from here. This growth already started the season before. They won 22 games in 2022. That improved to 34 in 2023, and now it improved again to 47. And now they have the potential to potentially be a 50 win team. The growth is happening on both ends of the floor. That's encouraging, but it's the defense that has transformed them into this playoff caliber team. Here's their offense and defense relative to average. In 2022, they were almost 8 points worse than average on offense and around minus 0.5 on defense. They were minus 3 points worse on offense in 2023. They were plus 0.3 better on defense in 2023. And finally, this year they were minus 1.6 worse than average on offense, but they were plus 3.8 better on defense. So they're still pretty bad offensively. They're not even around average yet. But it's the defense that is a lot better. Of 716 different teams since 2001, they're 77th. So that's pretty good considering how young they are at too. Then going from 11th best defense to second was the reason for why they've been so good this year, and it will probably be a reason why they continue to be a dominant team in the regular season. There's Paolo Banchero that improved from his rookie season a lot. That showed a lot more promise and potential. Franz Wagner continues to take gradual leaps, although he had a very bad 3-point shooting. Still, he excelled in other areas. There's Jalen Suggs that blossomed into a key rotational player on both ends of the floor, particularly with the shooting and his defense. Jonathan Isaac was playing basketball and he was one of the best defenders in the world. And that's why they were in Game 7 against the Cavaliers, the furthest they've been in the playoffs since 2010. The playoffs did show some of the glaring holes and weaknesses for both players and the team, particularly offensively, where the defense just kept packing the paint and there was nothing else that they could do. But the defense was legit enough to make this whole series in the mud. But there are key questions on the other end. But it's still going a lot right for them. They have the young core, they have 2 young players, they have good rotational players, their defense is elite, and they continue to make moves in the offseason to make them better. They didn't push all their chips when it comes to just getting the star player. They didn't sacrifice some of the core for a star player. They didn't even trade any assets to get better right now. All they added was a needed veteran who could provide spacing and continue to solidify the defense in Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. And they drafted another wing in Tristan da Silva at 18th. So now it's just hoping all the young stars can continue to take the leaps, and they're in for a season that could reach top 3 in the East and could be a 50 win team. So what's in store for the Magic this year? It's how good can this defense be? They're elite. They were number 2 in the league. Can they get even more elite defensively? Can they just brush up on some of the weaknesses on the defensive end? Could they just make themselves even more dominant? And I wonder what even is their depth defensive lineup? Like, what is their... We talk about always a depth offensive lineup with like spacing, firepower. What is their defensive lineup that just takes life out of every other team? Can Isaac play a lot more, and will he have a bigger role? Is Pope enough to make a difference on both ends of the floor? Is he good enough on offense with his spacing? How much better will he make the defense? There are the leaps from Wagner and Paolo. Those are the 2 leaps that could just swing the whole season in the right direction? Can the offense hit average levels? They don't need to be good. They just can't be bottom 10 defense. And some of the spacing issue just needs to be slightly better. Just get the offense good enough to be 15th, 14th, and combine that with the best defense. They could make noise then. And then what about the rest of the handful of young players? They have a mix of young players and the young in terms of just experience and where they are in the league. So just seeing what else do they have and any potential moves with those young players. But the first thing is with the defense. That's what I'm interested in most, because that will likely be the reason why they are successful again, and it will probably be a reason why they win 50 wins this year. That is not their issue, but it's still their driving force of why they are successful. And now they got Pope. And per People Index, amongst rotational defensive on-ball players that are wing stoppers and point of attack, Pope ranked in 4th in ball screen navigation, 1st in off-ball chaser defense, 25th in passing lane defense, 16th in perimeter isolation, 18th in defensive LeBron versus roll average, and 16th in matchup difficulty. The Magic didn't have another guard that could do the things that Pope could do. They didn't have another guard that can just get around screens so easily, both on and off the ball. So that will make the Suggs Pope backcourt just hell for opposing teams. No guard will have a good night against the Magic. I will wonder what the stats are when it comes to just guards versus the Magic, because the Magic were already 2nd in defensive rating. They were already 4th in live ball turnovers forced, 2nd in opponents' turnovers per 100 possession, 2nd in defensive rebounding percentage, 2nd in opponents' second chance points per 100 possession. The Magic had 12 lineups with at least 50 minutes, and 8 of them had a defensive rating of under 110. With Isaac and Suggs on, it was 102 in 183 minutes. With Isaac on, it was 105. With Suggs on, it was just 113. Suggs, Wagner, Banchero was 109. Isaac and Wagner was 105. Isaac, Wagner, and Mo 104. So a lot of combinations. They were at least 10 points better than average. A lot of the lineups being that dominant just gives them so much flexibility, and it gives them a high floor for whatever lineups they put out on the floor. They know whoever comes up will be able to defend. And as you can see with some of the combinations, a lot just depends on Isaac. He only played under 16 minutes per game in 58 games, and he was already the most impactful defender when it comes to just his metrics. He was at plus 4.1 defensive estimated plus minus. So there is an argument that he was the best per possession defender. What is that going to look like if he can play 25 to 30 minutes? It's going to be a big jump, adding just 10 more minutes of Isaac. That line could be a swing for the defense, just having the lineups with him on were already 105. So that would give more minutes for those kind of lineups. And that's where I can see their defense being so elite that their offense won't matter, and that will be another reason why they're so successful. But if they will want to have any kind of success, especially in the playoffs, they will have to remain a top 5 defense. I don't think they show that it's not sustainable or that it was a fluke, but they just have to commit on that end, because a lot of the issues come down on offense, and that's where I'm not that comfortable with. Because everything else, their whole ceiling and how far they could get comes down to the offense. Their floor and ceilings are raised on that end. Some of it is with the 2 best players, Franz and Banchero, just taking leaps and improving drastically, and a lot of it rests on just having a good environment for those players by creating better spacing and just having more players that could do stuff. But starting with the latter, this is where Pope comes in. He's a 37% shooter for his career on just under 8 threes per 100 possession. In the last 5 seasons, he's shooting 40% on over 7 threes. I wouldn't say he has he has the volume of a high volume 3-point shooter, but he's still accurate. This is still not someone that can be left wide open anywhere on the court. And the way he gets it is coming off screens. He's on the move. He's not someone you can just help off and ignore. So, and we've already seen how much impact he has on like a team like Denver with those shooting. Here are also some kind of the stats, and we'll see how it compares to the rest of the Magic's team. You can see how the 3-point versatility is so high, because he gets them in so many different ways. His 3-point shot making is elite. The efficiency is elite. The creation is not there. That's where the volume comes in. He's not the guy that would just take 10, 11 threes. Though that should change. I do want to see him take a lot more, and maybe that he will have to do that in this team, because a lot of it is probably down to Denver. They weren't a high 3-point shooting team, and that just probably bled into why he hasn't been either. But then you can see also his openness rating. It's quite low, so teams will just stick with him. They will not leave him wide open. And that's exactly what the Magic needed. They needed someone to just warrant that kind of attention, because this was what their Magic's 3-point shooting looked like. They had Suggs and Ingles, and that was it. Everyone else was not versatile. They weren't getting a lot of threes. No one else was really getting threes. Cole Anthony was the best one that surrounded Franz and Paolo, because everyone else was bad, not taking them, and it was not a threat at all. Because when it comes to just the rotational start players, it was only those two players here, Suggs and Ingles, that warranted any kind of defensive attention. Isaac had good 3-point shooting. He shot the ball well, but we saw in the playoffs that the defense just did not care. And they need more players that the defense will actually care about. So that's where Pope will help a lot. The Magic had the 6th lowest 3-point rate and 7th lowest 3-point accuracy. That's not the best combination to have to be both bad and not take threes. So hopefully both him and Suggs could be enough to just boost some of the starting lineups offense enough. But outside of that, pretty much all of it will come down on Franz and Paolo just taking steps, being better, and they can raise the whole floor and the ceiling of this team. A big part of it is Franz 3-point shooting. Can that bounce back? He shot 35 and 36% in his first 2 seasons. That dropped to 28% this year. He's improved everywhere else though, but he needs that 3-point shot to just bounce back from one of the worst to at least average, because he became more efficient from 2 points in each season. He now shot 57% from 2. He upped his free throw rate slightly. That has also been steadily improving. Without Banchero, but with Franz on, the Magic were plus 14 with a 125 offense. That, you may want to say that the lineups helped him, but that is still significant. A 125 offense with Franz just taking charge. He averaged over 27 points per 75 possession on 50% effective field goal, 61% true shooting, 28% usage. Only 32% of his twos were assisted, and 60% of his threes were assisted. And the man here just could not miss from inside the arc. He shot 71% at the rim with 43% frequency, 51 within 14 feet, and 50 beyond 14 feet inside the arc. That was only 538 minutes, so it is a small sample. But we're seeing the glimpses of him just carrying the offense and being able to score efficiently in Magic's context. He was second on the team in touches and in time of possession. Maybe he runs a lot more. Maybe they should run a lot more offense through Wagner. I want to see what kind of direction they'll go with him now, especially with the improvements that he took. He averaged 0.93 points per possession on 5 possessions in the pick and roll. That's good for 70th percentile. In isolation, he scored 1 point per possession, which was good for 67th percentile. So he's already looking like one of the better wings, not considering age. He already took big jumps as a scorer, and hopefully that continues, because if he just continues to develop like that, continues to warrant more touches and being that efficient, that could help them offensively so much more. Then there's Banchero. Out of him and Wagner, he's the one that needs to take the biggest leap or have more changes to his game. I went through some of Banchero's game when I write about him versus Paul George on my Substack at simplyballing.com. That went through some of the stats, some of the shot profile, some of the efficiency and inefficiency that he has in his game. Obviously, the team situation makes it worse, but I also believe that Banchero is just as guilty of making the team's offense that bad, with some of the shot selections, some of the decision just to pull up instead of getting to the rim, because some of the shot profile isn't perfect for him. Like, he's not getting to the rim at a good enough level. He can draw so many fouls, but hasn't, and instead goes for those pull-up shots that he's not really good at either. And I don't know how much of the team's context should be on him as well, considering we just talked about Wagner's efficiency. Like, I know there are probably some lineup changes that could maximize Wagner more than Banchero. Not to that extent. Not to the extent that just Wagner shoots 70%, gets to almost half of his shots at the rim compared to Banchero around 30. That can't just be the team's context. Even in the playoffs, we saw Wagner just take a lot more shots at the rim. So there is something about Banchero's game himself. Like, there are things outside of the team's context that he needs to change himself. Because he will still dominate the touches. They see him as the best franchise player, so he will warrant those touches, warrant handling the ball so much, being the offensive engine. He's an elite driver at that side, so he should warrant those touches because he's a much dangerous driver. He's also improved a lot as a passer, so there are more positives and potential than the negatives. So there are way more reasons to feel optimistic for this season. So now this season will just be about refining all of the parts of his scoring game. He can't have the kind of volume he has with that shot diet. He takes almost a quarter of his shots beyond 10 feet, and he only shots around 46%. That's 0.814 points per shot beyond 10 feet. Even when you increase that range to beyond 4 feet, he shoots still around 40%. Almost 40% of his offense is inefficient offense. That would never translate to anything good. If you're taking 40% of your offense at 40%, the defense will live with that. If you're taking just 0.8 points per shot, yes, that's analytics. That's not turning the guys into robots, but it will matter. And that's the biggest reason for him, because he's also not making the defense pay by just collapsing them, not making them pay with the passing, which he can. Instead, he just goes for the suboptimal shots. How that order develops, how much he can improve as a shooter to make those percentages better, how much he can fix the shot diet when he's not settling for many jumpers, will determine their offense. How much can he improve his passing as well? How much can he play without the ball? Get easier looks at that size, because that's another thing that Wagner has been able to do. Paolo hasn't been able to just play in the same way off ball. So all of those points will determine how far they'll go. If he takes those jumps, if he makes those improvements, their ceiling is significantly higher, and they could make a run to the conference finals even, especially if that defense continues. But finally, there's the rest of the team. There's Suggs, who already has made massive improvements on both ends of the floor, and I really wonder what his season is going to look like now, because he already took that big jump now. So now we're just refining it. Part of his game is making himself more effective. He was already in 93rd percentile in estimated plus minus, so he was already having impact on both ends. He shot 40% from 3 on almost 10 attempts per 100 possession. He improved his 2-point percentage significantly from 49% to 55%. He adjusted his shot diet to have more than half of his shots from 3. That's why he made a huge leap from 53% true shooting to 60%. He turned himself into an elite 3-and-D player. And that's not even talking about the kind of defense he plays, where he was already an all defensive kind of guy. So, and he's already going into his 4th year and has made that leap. So even if he doesn't improve, he can help affect contenders. He's already at the stage where he cannot improve a single bit, and every team will want to have him. Every team will want to have a high efficient, high volume 3-point shooter that can play defense as well as anyone. Then there are so many just young players. There's Silver, Anthony Black, Jet Howard, Caleb Houston. That's 4 different players that are 6'7" or bigger. I'm not sure they have in there. But I'm not sure what some of those 4 wings have that could help this team. Lott didn't play. Jet Howard didn't play pretty much at all. Black played less than 20 minutes per game. Houston played under 15. What's the role for these young players going forward? Can they even make improvements to warrant minutes on a good contending team, or should they consider moving them? I wonder how much we'll see Silver see the court as a rookie, considering they didn't play Howard. They only played limited for Black. Magic may run into a trouble of having too many young players needing to develop, but also at a stage where they're looking to be good. How do you balance that with getting young players reps to get them in positions that where they can be successful, they can develop, versus just doing what's necessary to win? And then there are the vets or just the older young players. There's still Wendell Carter Jr., Gary Harris, Mo Wagner, Cole Anthony. I don't think any of them should be saved from any potential trades to make the team better. I wouldn't say any of them are part of the core. All of them bring something different. All of them have been key for the defense. Both Carter and Wagner have been key as their bigs. But there are ways to improve. There are ways to just continue to have that kind of defense without them, but maybe make an upgrade offensively. So I do wonder what moves the Magic could make to not sacrifice the defense, not sacrifice the young core, and still look to get better. So right now they have a year filled with so much potential that could swing right. If their offense improves and the defense stays as is, then this team can be very exciting to watch. So some predictions. I see this team as a 45 to around 50 wins. Their floor, it's dropping to the plane where their offense just isn't much better, and they do see a decline in their defense, which I don't think is going to happen, but that's still where I would have them at the floor. Their ceiling is a top 3 team in the East. An average offense and a top 3 defense could carry them so well that they just easily be a top 3 team. I don't think their defense will regress that much, but if the offense isn't much better, they can go from top 2 to top 7 easily. Because it's going to be hard to just carry on banking on the defense. Speaking as a Heat fan, there have been a defensive team as well with struggling offense, and it's always going to be hard just making sure that defense will always step up. At some point, the margin of error just isn't there if the offense just can't score points. There will still be a decent team even if they don't improve the offense significantly, but that's just their ceiling in the offense will depend on the offense. A lot of that can happen if Wagner's predictions come true. If he continues to develop, if he continues to improve with more responsibilities, more touches, if he can be the best player on the team, which I think isn't easy, like he has a case to be better than Banchero right now, then they could solve a lot of the issues offensively. That same goes with Banchero. If with that happening and an improved version of him where he plays more off ball, if he just brushes up on some of the shot selections versus passing more, cleans up the shot diet, goes for less of those tough pull-up jumpers, and if he can embrace the more off-ball role alongside Franz, those two don't have to make an all-star leap. They don't have to be. Those leaps don't have to be big to have a big impact, because there are 2 of them. If it was just one of Franz or one of Wagner, one of Franz or one of Banchero, then the leap would have had to be big to make a difference. But because there are 2 of them, I can see just him having marginal improvements and their offense being that much better. Then there are players like Suggs. If they can improve, I can talk myself into the offense being a lot more. There are still so many young players that could swing the right way. There are potential moves to be made if they want to just consolidate some of the young players into a win now mode. That could change things. I like this Magic team a lot. They should have the same elite defense. I want to see how Pope makes them even more elite on that end. That's why right now I have them as a top 5 team in the East.